Hey guys, today I'm going to show you some of the techniques I use to create my space pieces. Here's an example of an earlier piece where I only used pigments and quite a few layers of resin to create my galaxy. I do love these earlier pieces, but I did wind up using about like 6 layers of resin each for each piece here. I wanted to start painting some of the texture rather than relying on the resin to create it for me, since it was taking so many layers for me to be happy with it. So I started playing around with alcohol ink in my pieces. Here's an example of a set I did that I used acrylic paint for the base, and then I put alcohol ink on top to create the shape I was happy with. I then mixed in some color shifting pigments to give it some extra dimension as well as color. And then instead of adding pigments to the resin and doing multiple layers like I did previously, I just sealed these pieces with clear resin. For the next 3 pieces, I used the same 2 techniques I learned earlier, which was acrylic paint for the base and shape, and then alcohol ink on top. Create some contrast, mix in some color shifting pigments for that sneaky shine, combine all 3 until I'm happy with what it looks like. But this time I decided to add a little color shifting pigment to the resin while also adding alcohol ink. Now alcohol ink is really fun to play with in resin. While it's still curing, it glides on top, and it kind of like mixes in with the color quite nicely. So when I stumbled upon the way it moved with these pigments, I really fell in love with the combination. I even added some black and gold ink for contrast, which in my opinion is what separates these pieces from the past few that I did. This technique is what I'm going to be showing you today, so I'm going to get suited up and I'll get started. So start off with my base shape. I'm going to be using warm colors, and I have these awesome color shifting pigments I've been using from Let's Resin. I'm just brushing them on top to give it a shine, so when I put the alcohol ink, you can see the glimmer in the ink. I try to blend them in as natural as possible, and then I also like to add glitter before I add the ink. You'll see why later. I will add a little varnish to keep some parts of it in place, and then I just go in with my alcohol ink. I'm using clear alcohol to help spread it along the surface. I use a small heat gun to help dry and move it around the surface to get my desired shape. As you can see, the glitter starts to intertwine with the ink, which is why I like to lay it down first. It just brings another layer to the piece. After I'm done with the ink, I'm just going to go in with a little bit more pigment. Some of it does get lost in the ink, but you'll be able to see when I show you a close-up of the shimmer that comes up underneath it. I then add my stars with some white acrylic paint, mix it in with a little bit of water, and I just use 2 brushes to tap it along the surface so it looks kind of natural. So I really wanted to make this piece bright, so I threw in a little bit of paint in the resin for this as well. So I'm working with paint, pigment, and ink in this layer here. So as you can see, the contrast of the paint immediately, it's really bright. It's gonna kind of bring that pop to the piece that I was looking for, just because of the colors. I don't know, I was just really feeling like a neon piece for this, so thought like a neon pink and orange and yellow would be really nice for this, and the contrast of the paint would be perfect for this. So this is what I was talking about earlier with the alcohol ink. When you drop it on top while the resin is curing, it creates these really cool circles, while you can still see the color of the resin underneath it. So I'm playing around with the shape, add some black, some gold, brings a lot of contrast in there, while adding some color in there, the blue, purple, just kind of having fun with it at this point. This is the first layer, so I know it's not going to be perfect. Just kind of trying to create some texture at this point. And you can see like the orange is coming up out of the black, which is just beautiful. And I just love the gold in this. That was what I was missing before. I feel like gold needs a little bit of gold in every piece. I don't know. Just needs it. And clear resin. Definitely save some clear resin. You don't want to just put all of your resin into color or pigments. You want to just save a little bit of clear resin in case you need it at the end. And even look at that, that's just clear alcohol ink. It's just making these cool rings. And then I have some more alcohol. And look at the way it just moves with the gold. You can see the orange come up from underneath that layer. You still have the purple around it. So when I discovered that, I really fell in love with it, and I don't know, I just feel like that's like a must-have in these pieces. So that layer is done. Now I'm just going in with a little bit more color shifting pigments just to give it, you know, a little bit more pizzazz. I don't know. I'm always adding the pigments, like every layer, every little nook and cranny, any part of the piece I find boring, I'm just like, you know what, a little bit of pigment here might just give it what it needs. And as you can see, it's like very subtle, but I don't know, I love it. And I'm going to be adding some holographic paper to this layer. So I'm going to do another layer here, and I'm going to try and really bring out those bright colors by using more yellow and neon pink. I'm also using a glow-in-the-dark pink pigment. I don't know how well that's really going to work in this piece, but I had it in the studio, so just kind of threw it in there. I like to lay down clear resin, so when I put pigment or paint down, it moves a little easier. It's not just flat sitting on the piece. I also added a little bit of white in there for contrast. I know the paint is kind of taking over the piece right now, and you're probably wondering why I even bothered doing the base layer with the alcohol ink. Sometimes I use, like I said earlier, the clear resin to go on certain parts of the piece that I really like. So even if it's just the glitter that catches it, or if it's like a tiny bit of the pigment, to me it's worth it because it brings a whole nother dimension to the piece. So if you have to work a little extra hard and you don't see it, you know, it's just a guideline mostly. You know, the shape I'm getting and the colors that I want to use, it just helps with my creativity. So I let that layer cure and I removed the tape. I forgot to mention that I just like to add a barrier to keep the design in place. Sometimes when you don't, it just kind of runs off and you waste resin that way. So I like to add a tape barrier. But for the flood coat, I always remove it so it's a nice clean edge. I really can't wait to show you guys the details in this piece. It's really hard to see from this angle, but I added some extra pigments in there before this flood coat, so you really get to see a nice shifting in color in the middle there. And yeah, so I just like to always add a flood coat. It finishes off the piece nicely and makes it really crisp, and the attention to detail to me is really important in those crisp edges and everything. So yeah, I'm just finishing this top coat, and I'll show you guys the finished piece when it's cured. And the piece is completely finished. As I zoom in a bit more, you can see the color changing pigments as the lighting shifts a little. And the pops of holographic paper, which to me I think usually completes the piece. I really love the contrast of the paint on this one. I think adding that to my pieces in the future will bring a little bit more dimension to it. But I have the ink going on, the pigment, the paint. Overall, I really like this piece. I'm pretty happy with the way it came out. I think these pieces are so fun because in every lighting situation, it looks different. So whether you have it on the wall or on the floor, you know, different times of day, it's constantly changing, which I think makes it really fun. But if you guys have any questions about the techniques I used, you can always shoot me a message in the chat. Let me know what you think about this tutorial, what other tutorials you want to see in the future, if you want to see more space pieces, or, you know, different things that I'm working on. I'm always looking for new tutorials to make. So let me know what you think, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time out to watch this video. If you wind up making a space piece with the techniques that I showed you here, I would love if you could tag me just so I could see what you guys are creating. But thank you so much for the support, and until next time.